Thank you. Thanks, guys. Okay, Becca, I'm going to make you co-host here. Good morning, everybody. This is Sarah Whitmer from Loa Labs. I'm spinning up our Regenerati News Hour this morning from East Denver. Gregory, Dave, and other friends are here repping Regen and discussing all things refi. Gregory is going to hop in and join us as well, but he's speaking on a panel this morning at Shelling Point on permaculture and Web3. So if y'all are in Denver, come join us this morning. But let's move on to why we're here today. Becca is organizing a space to talk about Regen's Community Fund Recipients in celebration of the end of year grant report coming out this week. So we're going to give the floor to Regen Network's exceptional grantees to promote their work, upcoming projects and events, and opportunities and requests. Now, I am adding Becca as a co-host. There we go. Becca, can
Yeah,
you
I hear
speak?
you. Thanks, Sarah. Good
Excellent.
morning to
For
you. How's
sure.
it in Denver? Is it cold and snowy?
It's a little frosty. Yeah. Super nice.
You Californians getting cooled off. I'm sure it's great. There's a seems like a really great showing and good conversations happening there.
Yeah, for sure. Yesterday was Climate Summit, and that was excellent. It was nice to see Rex was there. It was good talking with you, Rex. Lots of good refi friends.
Well, I'm so glad. I feel the good energy all the way over here. Thanks for getting
Awesome.
up to spin this up. And I am already seeing like our folks. This is great. Howard, Rex, we've got Ned and Sophia. It's like our whole little Regen family here. This is great. So good morning to everybody. I would love for all of the grantees to go ahead and request to speak so that we can just make this a real open conversation. Everybody can just hop in and ask questions and talk to each other. And I'm especially glad that Howard is on because Twitter Spaces does not like Howard and did not let him speak very easily the last time. So I am especially glad to see Howard this morning. Before we jump in, and give everybody time to share about their work and shill some events going on or talk about upcoming stuff, I want to frame this out in kind of this moment that we're in, what the community fund even is, be able to pause really, and that this is an end moment for the first year of the community fund. We're wrapping up what is a gorgeous end of year report, and it's been a privilege to be able to craft it and see all of these projects in one report. So I'm feeling especially proud of what this program has accomplished in 1 year's time and its first year's time. And its original intention and starting out is to be able to incubate ideas and projects that wouldn't be able to kind of flourish and experiment without an investment. And there was a lot of debate that happened when we were originally selecting these grantees. We had 88 applications, and 12 million requested in USD, 2 million requested in Regen tokens. And there was just a lot of debate at Regen, like who are we funding in what ways, and how does this support this project move forward. And so I think now that we're at the end of this year, we can really look back and see so much work that this investment has afforded, and a lot of potential that's even yet to be seen. I'm thinking about was just in a conversation this week with White Buffalo, and a lot of the data that's coming out from their work is just the beginning of all of what's happened this past year. And what we're talking about within the community fund is we're talking about projects from all ranges of the network ecosystem. So we're talking about scientific work, we're talking about deeply technical work, we're talking about social and community goods, events, and DAOs, everything from stablecoin research to data module integration. So a lot of work. And I'm glad to be able to have a chance to have folks that have produced all of this themselves are alongside us, be able to share. So my gratitude first goes out to, I think, to Gregory for the vision of what this could and should be, and then to all those grantees that applied and then made good on that investment and have really produced some exceptional results. And I'm glad to have Ned here too. He was one of their kind of internal grant managers that was working closely with grantees, and we had a solid team internally at Regen that was tasked with supporting individual grantees as they move through the year and answer questions and figure out how to support them as they go on. So big gratitude too to all those internal folks at Regen that supported grantees along the way. So with that said, I want to give Gregory a chance, if you're there, if you'd like to share some thoughts or reflections on the community fund before we jump in to the group. I'd love to have you share. And if he's just listening in, he might be actively on a panel speaking about the same things too. So if he pops in, then we'll let him come up. But
I think he's popping in right now.
Nice,
There
awesome.
we go. Yeah. Sorry about
the
that.
delay is always hilarious. We'll take a breath. Nice, he's here. Hey, Gregory. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I was just furiously putting links to the Twitter space and all of the places. So
nice. Well played.
Yeah. Good to see everyone. Hello. Well, I guess thinking back, I think part of the inspiration agency out into the edges. So oftentimes you get a small group of people who, however talented and however well-intentioned, kind of become a bottleneck in creating a vision. And obviously at the heart and core of Regen Network is this idea of a community of actors who are really connecting to what the planet, what an ecosystem is asking of them in terms of regeneration and outcomes, and this is our approach to carbon crediting, our approach to governance, our approach to transparency is all driven by this engine of community. And in order to make that all work, it was super clear that we needed to find a way to fund talented people out in the community. And so the community grant process was really to try to fulfill that, to try to distribute agency in the form of some financial capital out into talented groups to be building out visions of what Regen Network is for them. And so I'm super excited about all of the amazing things that happened over the course of the last year and people building out. Especially amped to have Howard here and Colshan Carbon Trust. I'm kind of constantly telling people about Colshan and how excited I am about the integration of just this amazing intersection of work, both the carbon outcomes through biochar and fuel load reduction, but also the way in which the community approach in Colshan Carbon Trust is so at the heart, to create a carbon trust and to model that and to create something that can, instead of being scaled into some giant system, to create a replicable model where different communities have these carbon trusts to do project development and take climate action. So grateful to be here, super excited to be jamming with the space, super excited to see some of our grantees and community members, and just excited to hear the stories of what people have accomplished along the way. So Becca, thanks so much. Also, just want to shout out, Becca's done so much work to help coordinate and empower and engage and listen and guide the community of grantees. So I'm really grateful for that, Becca. It's not a small task. And obviously, Becca also does a bunch of other things to help bring the registry to life, to help work with other partners. And so it's been a heavy lift on our end as well. It can't be understated actually how important, but how hard it is to push agency out to the edges of a community. So really excited about what was accomplished, and yeah, excited to take stock and learn.
Thanks, Gregory. I appreciate that a lot. And I feel like just thinking about the edges of the community feels really good right now. I think it makes you at the end of the day feel like there is there is so much agency and support that's there, that's happening. So I think centering on that is awesome. I um, am so ready to just like go round robin with everybody that's here. And I think I agree, like starting out with Howard, with you and Kolshin, and this dual role that you all also play as methodology and project developer, as pilot project of Regen Registry, first to land eco credits in the marketplace from Regen Registry, and also a CSDAO. So you all have, I think, just done a really extraordinary job of the community, the cooperation, the collaboration that is required. So I'd love for you to just take some time to share thoughts, reflections, current work, credits coming on. It's your floor, so it's yours.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca and Gregory. I'm really full of I'm not sure the right word is pride, but good feeling, hearing your introduction about what was behind the scenes in conceiving of this community is a story I hadn't heard before. And as I reflected on it, really was a vote of confidence that the Regen Network gave our idea and our people to, before we had received other grants, to recognize that we had an approach that was compatible with the vision that's reflected by the white paper and by the way you've designed the network and the foundation. And what our origin story within Regen is, we were among the first cohort to be awarded these community grants, and that was on the basis of our proposing biochar pilot projects within our community. Biochar has great potential in our bioregion. We are a land of forests and fields, and the Pacific Northwest is largely a temperate rainforest. So we have very rich carbon reserves. We also have an area that is subject to profound exploitation. So our first project, and one in which we organized, and if I may, I'm going to reflect on how we organized our project, because I think that is at the heart of the comments that I heard about the way Regen has favored our approach. And we assembled an interdisciplinary and intergenerational work group that included members of the Regen team, particularly Tika and Sam and Ned, all served as advisors within this work group that designed and along with others some of whom we recruited from the Regen Network, others came from different communities. We had a dozen advisors that directed our small team of staff and interns as to how we can valorize, which is the term we used to reflect the particulars of monitoring, reporting, verification of the carbon credits, of the eco credits. It was an effort to figure out, in the absence of a drop in methodology, what's it going to take for the fruits of the biochar production to be eligible for pilot projects. And with the help of our advisors, particularly Sam, Tika, and Ned, we were able to attach an appendix to a Vera methodology for biochar, which, as a happy coincidence, was finally adopted just weeks before our scheduled conservation burns for the biochar. And what that meant is the appendix that our team wrote that adapted this global methodology to local circumstances and to the particulars of how we would be operating in the production and application. We've been going through a process, and I think this has been really interesting and instructive, the process that the Regen Registry has put in place for creation of new classes of credits, of our credit class for biochar. And I'm getting into the weeds, so I'll pull back a little bit and note that this will and has given us credibility locally to have put some points on the board, carbon in the ground. We were able to attract some modest additional grants late last year and early this year to go into phase 2 of our biochar program. And we're really excited about this because it gives us two opportunities. One is to work with our local conservation districts that have the outreach and the credibility within the landowner community that are going to be the folks we're trying to reach. And rather than having to network from scratch, we're networking through their good offices and have much better reach than we would have to try to talk to people individually or through Granges or community associations. Their network already exists, and we now have access to it as partners. And there are a couple of things we're now going to be able to do this year that I think will be a model for scaling. Not just biochar, but other natural climate solutions. And that's really what I want to share with the group is where we think we're going after having done the conservation burns and the methodology. The next step is to initiate a loan program for kilns. Kilns are at a small scale a way for, and these are portable kilns that look like giant fire pits that make the production process better controlled. And because they're portable, we can take them out into the field and go to where the biomass residuals are, be they agricultural or forestry. And this is really exciting since we've purchased with the grant a couple kilns that we can then loan to landowners or small groups of landowners to produce biochar in the community. And the part I'm really enthusiastic about, and have a board meeting later today for the purpose of authorizing a charter for a second work group to which we're recruiting members locally and probably some subject matter experts that'll help us with the legality and the finance and how to organize what we're calling a carbon co-op. And we're seeing carbon co-ops as the way to implement our idea of collaborative natural climate solutions. They're modeled broadly after agricultural co-ops. And this model is one that the conservative landowners out in the county are familiar with. There's big participation in some dairy co-ops here. So they're trusted. Plus, we have some major consumer co-ops within our communities. So we think the idea of a carbon co-op, while it's still at a high level concept, is the vehicle that we can use to create what others have been calling DAOs. The idea that we're going to be stakeholders and have a governance method that allows participants to access technical assistance, to share risk and to equitably allocate rewards. So that's what I'm really excited about now, is the idea that we have a platform through the conservation districts to design what will model as a carbon cooperative. And if we are successful, we hope to scale it locally and then offer it through papers published through the Regen Network and elsewhere as a model that we would encourage others to replicate. So that was our story, and I want to close it by again expressing great gratitude to Regen Network, Regen Foundation for the support, the encouragement, and the um, and making what we've done possible in this setting.
Well, thanks, Howard. I feel like if I kind of summarize my feelings about Colshan, it feels like fully realizing the potential. It's like your work is realizing the potential of Regen Registry and the processes that we've put into place, and being able to land credits in the marketplace, realizing the potential of a community voice, and what are the questions that we should be asking as we're exploring governance models and use cases, and the evolution of foundation and CSDAO, and certainly the evolution of Regen Registry. And I really I think I most appreciate your insightfulness, and I think that's something that we need to continue to lean on. I want to give a chance for anybody who has questions for Howard or wants to share back. Please raise your hand. And if anybody out there in the audience is a grantee, please go ahead and request to speak so that we can get you up there. But yeah, Gregory, hit it.
Yeah, I have some questions. And first off, I'm so excited about Kulshan's approach. And so a couple of, these are sort of questions about the credit itself. Am I correct in thinking that, at the moment, the credit is focused really on carbon reduction through this sort of decentralized approach with these kilns out in forest lands, but that in the gathering of that biomass in the forest, we're also reducing fire risk, right? So there's a co-benefit of fuel load reduction and fire risk in the Pacific Northwest, which is super vulnerable to that. Am I reading too much into that, or is that
No,
accurate?
no, you're spot on with that, and indeed that is how we started that work group on valorization, is with the ambition of having a methodology that would value those co-benefits. And we put a placeholder there because we really had our hands full getting the carbon methodology ready to register, to register on the Regen Registry and to prepare it for the exchange. But phase two of our valorization efforts is very much aimed at trying to quantify, and it's more than just fire risk reduction, which is of enormous value in the West, of course. It's also the water retention and the support it gives to watersheds by having biochar in the soil, as well as nutrient transfer. And as the science grows and there's enough of a consensus on measurement techniques, we'd very much like that, and I would envision your point about fire risk reduction being something that might drive institutional money into buying these credits. If I was an insurance company with exposure, a way to manage that would be to make investments in this kind of work. And if we can show that we have a reliable stream of income or credits from these projects, I think it has lots of applications, and it's a matter of getting, I think, getting the credibility that these results have been verified.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And so the other question, or sort of like kind of comment that I have about the credit itself, is just, I think biochar has long been somewhat controversial, because oftentimes biochar is associated with sort of pulling out biomass, extracting biomass from giant industrial systems, and there's a concern that that incentivizes, you know, monocultures and industrial agriculture systems in order to get, you know, this carbon outcome, and maybe it doesn't actually work. And that's a night and day different approach from what you're talking about, which is, you know, individual landholders across a landscape actually enhancing ecological health and having this carbon outcome with these micro kilns and the sort of the specific cooperative process that you're talking about. Do you want to share a little bit more about, I guess my question there is just, how have you found talking about biochar to stakeholders, just in terms of how people are seeing biochar as a solution or as maybe as a threat, in terms of, you know, yeah, just what is it like for you on the ground in terms of talking about that, and just feeling how people are perceiving things?
Well, I think that's an important question, and we've actually had more pushback on carbon credits and the larger controversy that attaches to that market. The biochar itself is there's a core of folks who are very, very they're biochar enthusiasts, and most folks are unfamiliar, and when they become interested, they become more enthusiastic as they learn about it. And that's why we're pleased about the grant we now have. It's for public education as well as training. So we think we can build a critical mass of local interest to scale it. And let me just tie it back to that appendix we did through our valorization work group. And what that was to avoid a requirement under the Vera methodology that would have required mixing with compost and transporting to agricultural lands. We're instead doing instant application, and the requirement is that areas that have been subject to logging, that they be replanted in mixed native trees, and the I'm missing the word, well, they be replanted so that we can replicate native forests in the way they regenerate. So that's how we're approaching the question of avoiding repeating the mistakes of these tree plantations, that our methodology is used to create the planting medium that allows us to restore native forests.
And
Go ahead, Becca.
oh, well, if you have a follow-up, go ahead.
I was just going to say, win biochar credits.
When biochar, yes, absolutely. And I will say that, having done a lot of research in biochar, I feel like this application is such a force for good, and there is I think a lot of thought around biochar being kind of like a panacea for all things. And so I appreciate that this is just really specific to a particular use case and to using, you know, wood waste. So that is going to be awesome when it lands in the marketplace, and we see those credits moving. I really appreciate all your work, Howard. I do want to shift to, we've got a dream team duo, Paul and Will Cambium, in the house, and they are not only wear the hats as Cambium, but also in other spaces within our community, like Farm OS, and have, I feel like, a unique ability to be like very in the weeds on data module, and then very in the weeds on like farm applications. So I want to give you guys a chance to share about the work that you did developing that reference implementation, indexing, and anchoring of data on chain. Share it with everybody, and let's see what questions folks have.
Hey, yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Can you guys hear me okay?
you're a little fuzzy, but yeah, I hear you just fine.
Okay, I'll try and speak up. So yeah, Will and I worked on a grant over the past year to build a reference implementation for the new data module. So about a year ago, the data module was still in its infancy. So we, I guess through the first half of the year, we kind of were researching the concepts behind the data module and testing it in the test nets and on our own local nets. And once we got through that process, we started working on actually building this reference implementation. And so what this implementation does, we're calling it the pinning service, and it provides three main kind of features for the data module. First is the ability to actually resolve data, and that's something that's in itself defined by the data module. So when you anchor data on chain, you need a way to actually retrieve the raw data, because when you anchor data on chain, there's only a hash of that gets put on chain. And so the pinning service acts as that resolver. It also has an API to automate the anchoring of data on chain. So that makes it easier for projects and methodology developers to basically provide data, but not have to worry so much about all of the technicalities of signing and managing transactions. And then the last thing we've worked on is also indexing this data. So all the data we've been working with is semantic RDF data. And so this is a very robust and flexible data format that when indexed allows us some very new and novel ways of querying the data back out. And so yeah, those are the kind of the three main concepts we've been exploring, and happy to share that last week we have deployed a demo of this onto the Redwood testnet. So you can actually go online and try it out and send data, and it'll be anchored on chain, and then you can query it back out from our indexer. And that's kind of the next steps we're excited for, is to get this out there and hopefully learn more about specific use cases from all the other grantees and projects and methodology developers to see how this could help manage the data for those projects.
This is super exciting, and I can't help but think about the RDF conversations that we had, Paul at GOAT, like
Yeah,
making a claim for that, and then like seeing that those concepts in action here with y'all's work. I wonder if, for those of us that are more familiar with the data module, like, following along what these steps mean and like really what they mean for projects and credits coming on. But could you walk through really quickly, like an example? Like we can even take like Colshan, for instance, and like what their use would be, or like how that data would kind of move through those different features.
I see Howard has his hand up. Do you want to take a stab at that, Howard?
Well, I'm sorry, I'd lost connectivity, so I'd raise my hand to ask a question for Will and James, and to acknowledge and thank them for the support they gave our Colshan Carbon Trust in the work group. And I was wondering if they could talk a little bit about the wiki they are developing, and maybe that's just the way I understood the story that James just told, but I was really intrigued by their idea of being a hub for this wiki. Is there a report on that?
I'm not sure. I don't think we were working on a wiki. I'm trying to think what other project that might have been. But I know Will was working with you guys, Howard, and maybe Will, you could share some reflections from that.
Yeah, I forget. There was another group. I forget what it was called. Maybe Becca, you have a better idea, but it's.
I apologize. Withdraw my question.
No, I think you're good, Howard. I think it's the climate wiki. So I think we have a different crew of guys working on that.
Well, my comment stands that you were very helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and I was involved in the working group to some extent. Yeah, but we could. I mean, Paul and I could talk a little bit about that process, I guess. And I think too, there's a lot of work going on with methodology development, right? And emerging data standards in the space that we're excited to be a part of.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to weave that in because it's really top of mind as we're thinking about a lot of different, data sets coming in. And right now, those are being, would be stored um, on the blockchain, but then, in this future, like looking at different storage options and being able to anchor that data in different ways. Like there are a lot of moving parts. So it's nice to be able to center in a couple of threads within the work that you all have done. So yeah, take it in that direction too, for sure.
Yeah. So, and Paul, hop in here if you have any thoughts. But I guess one of the really exciting aspects of Regen Network is this democratization of methodology development, right? And this increase in transparency. So I think the data that's associated to these credits is core, right? And developing standards that are auditable and based on science. So having good tooling around being able to say, okay, I've got this credit. Where did it come from? What methodology was associated? How rigorous is it? And that's not to say every credit needs the same level of rigor, right? So like a community composting credit may have a different level of rigor to, a certain carbon credit or something like this. But regardless, being able to trace these things and being able to audit what you're actually purchasing or transacting is really critical. So I think there's a lot of room for developing great standards in the space and having putting our minds together to develop these things. And then also having great tooling to enable us to think more deeply about these things and to access them and share them. So with our work, we were, kind of touching on some of these points and taking a stab at it. And we want to gain community feedback before moving forward with the next piece. But I think one direction that we've identified is working on this indexing aspect of being able to see everything that's being anchored on chain and how it relates to each other. I think that's going to be really powerful, especially when you get into geospatial queries. I know, and maybe Paul, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing I'm just continually learning that I think is really powerful about the data module and how Regen has built this is that it can be both public and private. And for transparency, we certainly need some things to be public, but also like in the process of like verifying these different claims that are going to be made, and it's just also becoming becoming aware that there needs to be the ability to have some private access to this data as well, but still be able to anchor it on chain so that there's that ability to track it. And so, yeah, that's just one other thing that's cool about this concept of the data module and the resolvers, and as well with the indexing. So you could query this index data in a permissioned way as well.
And there are like two
Right.
dimensions that I feel like is, if I'm thinking about, well, you talking about the democratization of methodology development and the data that underpins it. And this kind of like, there is like let's not make another standard to, the set of standards that already exist, like allow those standards to talk to each other and index that data. There's like this very much this scientific dimension to this work with the data module. And it reminds me, Ned, of the work with the knowledge graph and how we have to have an ability to see the relationships between the data, between these methodologies. And it reveals a lot that, can speak for itself. It can reveal a lot about what we know, what we don't know, where the need is, where, where we have a lot of knowledge. So I feel like that really emerges strongly, this big connection between the data module, eco credits, and then the knowledge graph. That, Ned, if you want to come up and share, I think that'd be cool. The other layer that I'm especially jazzed about within the data module and thinking about use cases is that we have the projects on the table. We have the right folks leading those projects to really like test and experiment with what can be done and how much involvement someone wants to have. And there's this combination between the groups module and the data module, and how a groups account, can be managing and making decisions around data use. And like you're talking about, Paul, around what's public or private. So I think it is really cool when you start breaking this down. And I know that the more use cases we can kind of put onto this, the better.
Yeah, definitely. It's been an exciting year for Regen. I think there's some new fun toys on chain and lots of amazing work being done off chain, which is like why we're all here, of course. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Awesome. I appreciate y'all's work a lot. You guys like get into the dirt for sure on it. I wonder, we have in like about 15 minutes or so left, and I see like Crypto Commons is out here, and Ned, if you want to pop in to share about the knowledge graph, feel free. We also have Sarah B, which I want to give her some room to share, because she is like a backbone of all of this work too. And I have a lot of gratitude for all of her support and work this past year as director of ecosystem. So Crypto Commons, Ned, Sarah B, y'all hop up and share and chill as you'd like. I think we've got everybody coming into audio right now. Sarah B, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Yeah, I'll just chime in real quickly and just ultimately say that, all of our grant recipients have done spectacular, innovative work throughout the year. And it just feels like this really momentous moment where you start to really see some of the like groups module, meeting the methodology development, the methodologies producing real credits and the credits going to market. And so it's really cool to start seeing these deeper level of collaboration and interaction that are happening with the project pipelines, and with the increased functionality that is, coming online for the marketplace with the groups module and the ability to govern credits and groups, and also with some of the upcoming marketplace updates we're currently working on, like making credit information more available, making methodologies more accessible, really thinking about how to improve the resourcing of these processes on behalf of the community. So it's just a great moment in Regen, and I just want to thank each and every grant project for doing the great work you do in the world, because this is really a community effort, and everyone's projects are unique and bring a lot to the network at large collectively. So thank you all.
Nice, Sarah B. Thank you. Crypto Commons, would love to have you guys up. Would love to hear. I mean, this is an example for you all to know of like a physical space that manifests a lot of like digital energy, I feel like. So would love to hear how the Crypto Commons crew is doing, and what you guys have in store in the next stretch of time.
Hi, Becca. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me on stage. Maybe I give a brief. You already said we are a physical space. So we are the Crypto Commons Association. We run the Crypto Commons Hub, now rebranding as the Commons Hub, a physical space, a guest house in Lower Austria, about 1 hour south of Vienna. And we got a grant from Regen Network last year to build out our hub, which really helped us get going. And we're eternally thankful for that, because it came at a really crucial moment for us, where we were not really sure whether we would go through with it, we would do it. And then, the grant really gave us the energy and just the financial security to start this. And also we had a quite successful first year. We did 4 events last year, 2 big ones, a refi and conference, and our yearly gathering, the Crypto Commons gathering, and 2 smaller hackathons. I want to speak a bit about the rebranding from Crypto Commons Hub to Commons Hub. The reason for that is, on the one hand, we want to go more local with the projects and people we attract, because we are. I mean, it's great to have people come in from all around the world, but at the same time, we want to fight climate change and not accelerate it by necessarily having all of our guests from other continents flying in. We rather have them come in by train. Um, um, and the other reason is that we're also looking into adjacent technologies such as IoT and technologies. Permaculture, it's also a technology if you want. And approach all of these technologies from a commons-centric perspective. And I'd like to also shill a bit. We have 2 events coming up this spring, actually 3 events. The first one is the Solarpunk Now gathering in the beginning of April, which is gonna be a refi on conference, but also has some hands-on parts in permaculture and in IoT-backed permaculture. So we are installing a farm bot, we're building a mushroom farm, and we are installing IoT-supported beehives, and we'll have a ceremony of hosting our first bees. That's the first event, and I could imagine that many here could be interested in joining it. I'll post the link later on. And then we have one event that is about this collaborative finance, credit where credit's due. Basically, the approach here is we want to bring the notion of credit to crypto. This event is going to be is in collaboration with Informal Systems. Ethan Buchmann is going to come and bring his perspective on collaborative finance. Several other organizations are also involved. I think this is going to be a very, very theoretical, very nerdy event, but in a way, all events are nerdy that we do. But definitely going to be very interesting for macroeconomic theorists, monetary theorists. And then the last event we do this spring is Play Drive, which is going to explore collaborative approaches to games and organizations. And I think I want to stop here and give others some space to speak as well.
No, this is great. I love it. Just like feels very vibrant. A lot of things going, especially around the bees. I feel pretty partial to that part, and I'm glad to be listing out some of those events in the kind of like looking forward section of the end of year report that's coming out. So glad to give you a chance to share what's coming. I wish that it was closer so that I could be there, but definitely want to support that work moving forward. And I wonder too, you all really sit at this crux between Web3 and like reality on the ground, and wonder what reflections you have for the world that we sit in, where we're originating these eco credits, we're landing them in a marketplace, we're building out the blockchain infrastructure to allow for a radical approach to what underpins these credits. What reflections do you have, especially after this year with a lot of physical work, do you have around kind of where Web3 meets the ground?
I think this is one of the main focus for this year. One of the main questions that we want to explore with these events, especially with the first one. So the approach there was, on the one hand, you have refi, which is very digital and often not very grounded, and on the other end, you have permaculture, which is really your hands in the dirt. And so I think with this event, we also want to look at smaller scale approaches to refi. and at the intersection of small-scale projects, community hubs, refi villages, and marketplaces that quantify, or protocols that quantify the effect on the ground. So I don't have a conclusive answer, definitely.
No, we'll say it's just emerging for us all. So I wish you lots of luck, and we'll be continuing to follow y'all's work.
Thank you so much.
We've got 9 minutes left, so others please that want to speak or ask questions, go ahead and request to speak. I think it would be awesome to jam for a second on the knowledge graph, especially because we still have, I think Will had we have got Paul here, and I think there's a lot of crossover. Do you want to share for a second about that work?
Sure. So I'm working on it's basically a proof of concept project right now, and it's really a back burner project. It's nothing, I'm not putting a ton of time into it, but what I'm trying to do is put together a very simple network graph database to demonstrate how regen and just kind of ecosystem regeneration in general could benefit from this sort of a resource. The database at the moment is just focused on agroforestry, and I'm leveraging some, it was a systematic literature review that a colleague did, pulling out agroforest. Well, it was basically all nature-based solutions for climate change, but I'm focusing just on the agroforestry part. So it's well over 100 peer-reviewed journals and the authors associated with them and the practices that they used and the outcomes and all that. So I'm hoping by the end of this month to have a bit of a demo, and hopefully we can have an online event where people can check it out and then decide if it's worth pursuing. Because right now I think it's got a lot of potential, but that's just me. So I want to see if people are kind of jazzed about it, and if they are, then figure out a way to move forward and come up with a bunch of use cases. We've kind of been brainstorming use cases, but I'm sure there are lots that we're not thinking about, and that's where getting community input would be good. But right now it's not really ready for prime time. But hopefully in another few weeks we'll have something to basically just have a very simple demo and then start a discussion going. And hopefully we'll announce that somehow when it's ready.
Paul, feel free to pop up if you want to ask more, if you want to ask anything about the project. I am really stoked about this knowledge graph. I feel like it's just really exciting. A visualization of a lot of complexity and a lot of like truth telling from data. So it's like, I think unlocking a lot for us, and I think we'll just have a lot of different use cases that we're digging into. Thanks for sharing on that, Ned. In the last few minutes, if anybody has any questions or would like to share any more, please, Crypto Commons, if you have any more shilling to do, you're welcome to. Or Gregory or Sarah B, feel free to share any last thoughts before we close out the session today.
Becca, quick question for you, actually. Sorry,
Yeah.
Gregory, not to cut you off, but
Sure.
what is the launch plan for the grant report? I know you've been working really hard on that.
Yeah, we've been working super hard on it, and it's looking really good. And I wanted to be able to speak to the volume and complexity of what's been achieved. So we're looking at being able to release it tomorrow. And I feel like keep an eye on Twitter and email for that coming out. And I think the big takeaways from that are everybody has been super busy and not really coming up for air to share really about the depth of the work. So I'm hoping that it really reveals a lot of depth and breadth for sure. So it's coming out, and keep your eyes peeled for it.
Yeah, so I guess my last thoughts here are just, twofold. on one hand, I think I'm just so grateful for the engagement and initiative by all of the different people. I think what's really interesting and unique is how open-ended this first round of community grants was, and you can just see by this breadth of conversation today, where we've covered sort of a specific, concrete, cutting-edge biochar carbon credit that is innovating not only on the land use side, but also on the social and legal structure side to really solve a specific problem. So we have that on one side. We have this sort of depth of technical and data infrastructure to revolutionize the way that science supports claims. And we have, a depth of ethical, philosophical, and economic inquiry into what the future of the relationship between markets and commons and states and how to convene people around that, just in this little slice of the grantees. And so as the report comes out, I'm just super excited myself to get to dive into that and just see where people's minds and initiative, because as I was mentioning in the start of this closing ramble, the magic here is that there's so much inspiration that happens at the edges of a community where people are seeing from their context what really needs to take place. And so being able to have this learning cycle where we've sort of empowered those edges and maybe empowered things that never would have happened otherwise, right? As our friends at the Crypto Commons, I think that's Felix maybe, just said, maybe these things wouldn't have happened otherwise, right? But when they do happen, something magical takes place. And I sort of feel like that's core somehow to what we're doing at Regen Network, is to push that edge of what and to engage. And you said this really beautifully at the very beginning, Becca, to realize potential. And the only way to realize potential is through these sort of creative deep dives that get unlocked and then bring that magic back into a community context. Like, okay, here, now we're all members of Regen Network. We're building our own commons. We're building our own marketplace. What do we harvest from all of these amazing initiatives? So I'm just super grateful. I'm inspired and excited. So it was awesome to listen to everybody.
Agreed. Thanks, Gregory. All of it. Absolutely. With that, unless no one has anything else to offer, I want to just look forward for the last minute and say that this is very much a seeding ground. This year has felt like a seeding ground of a lot of opportunity, and as we saw with Colshan's work, with Crypto Commons, with Cambium's work, there's so much that is going to emerge this year, and a lot of the rubber meets the road this year on how we can seam this together and really realize that potential. So I'm excited to just keep moving with all these relationships and all these projects and all of that expertise. So thank you all. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining. Sarah B, Gregory, Ned, thanks for y'all's support through the process, and we'll see you guys next time.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.